I said Marcus cooked chicken and vegetables. So they ate. I mean, they might eat again. Do you want me to go get them a rotisserie chicken? Oh, okay. That's the only reason I didn't buy one.
So that was that. How much was that?
78. I love you.
I'll give you the money tomorrow.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Hey, Henry, are you here? Hello. Let me move so you can pull in your garage.
Huh?
I said, I'm gonna move so you can pull in your garage.
Okay, you have to go to your event?
I'm in it.
Oh, you're on it now?
Yeah. I love you. Hello, hello. Everybody, welcome to a Black Poet Laureates First Sunday. I'm going to be your host tonight, Rhea Carmen. You won't see me, but you will definitely hear me. I hope that you are excited about this event. I am just waiting for our guest poets to arrive. There's one. Hello, hello, Mr. Henry Jones in the building. Hello, hello, Mr. Henry. How are you? Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, can you hear me? There you are.
Yes, hello there.
How are you doing today?
A little bit technical issue and confusion, but I'm here. That's the fine.
I totally understand. Part of that is on my part. I meant to send that link a lot sooner.
Yes.
And just forgot.
Okay. 1 second. And Kimberly's on her way.
Awesome, awesome. Oh, everybody, hopefully you guys are tuning in and you are excited about tonight with Kim and Henry as our featured poet laureates. They are going to share some poetry and some wisdom with you tonight. We're going to have ourselves a great time.
Let's hope. Yes, I think we will. I think we will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be your host tonight, Miss Rhea Carmen. You will not see me until the end, but you will hear me. I don't think that I'm necessarily camera ready.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. Hey, for your poets, for your laureates. How's everything been going for you, Henry?
Pretty good. Busy, rainy, and hot. Very humid here.
It hasn't decided what it wants to do.
Exactly.
We're under a flash flood until tomorrow, but there's been no rain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we're under a flash flood, but we are.
That means that it could happen any moment.
Yeah, and then the sky will unload and we'll be underwater.
Right. Oh, didn't realize my camera wasn't back on. Hmm?
I don't have her here yet. We'll wait on her. So, now, do you have a new book out?
It's in progress, yes.
It's in progress.
This, I just posted on Twitter because about something I realized, and that was that while working on the book, I was really, for lack of a better words, beating on myself about get it done, get it done, get it done. And, all these other things were going on. And I read Crystal Wilkinson's post about the difficulty of doing things, who's also one of our poet laureates, and the difficulty of working during COVID. And her words, I read them, and then I sat back and said, you know something? I was very ambitious and wanted to get all this stuff done. And thinking back on the deaths and myself having COVID, my wife had COVID, just dealing with those deaths, juggling just everything. And I was in unusual circumstances. And it was very unrealistic to say, yeah, all you got to do is boom, 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 boom. Everything will fit into place and the book will be there just magically. Just keep, because we're not living in normal circumstances. And I thanked her for that, because I had to realize that to myself, because, you're working on saying like, what's going on? What's holding you back? What's holding you back? And it was so much holding me back. And plus, I wrote a poem specifically for this event. And when I wrote that poem, after writing it, I read it there. It's called The Literary Luncheon. I realized that that particular poem was what I needed. It was that last poem, because I didn't know how to end the book, almost like writing a novel. You're thinking, how is this going to end? You got these characters interacting and you're in the middle, the climax came, but how are you going to round this up? And that particular poem, We Are More Than Pain, was that poem that I pulled out of me. And then the people I met there, many civil rights leaders, contemporary and modern. And I said, this is what's done it, because I kept putting more and more in. I said, you can't keep putting these poems, another poem, another poem, you'll never get finished. But I had these experiences and met these people which inspired poems. And that last poem was that last segment of what was missing in the book. And I said, well, you might push yourself, but things have a way of working their way out at the right timing.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it when I read. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, it's coming. it's been coming, but I'm glad it's finally where it needs to be. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping Kimberly's on her way. I'm going to shoot her a quick message. Would you like to share one of those poems with us while we are waiting on her?
I can do that, yes. I can do that. Actually, here's one right on the top here. It's titled Holding You. A long absence without feeling your arms, tight holding, not wanting to let go. As your scent and warmth fills me, love creeps into my flesh, a longing, not wanting to let go. Timeless and feeling right. Warmth, removing my coldness, dead parts become alive, untouched flesh throbs, just lost in your arms, being and becoming again. Never wanting to let go, this holding of wholeness, the emptiness and echoes become filled with your words, your voice, reaching deeply to my heart, beating a song I whisper, which I hear in my head, words finding me in your words, which I feel in my soul, words finding me in your words, which I know are real, but must let go. Embrace years of smiles, then goodbyes, tight holding. Eyes continue to reach out. They want to see and understand why holding you feels so right and familiar. Branches of lies have hung me from the top where fruit awaits to fall with me, clutching, flesh eaten as a game, seeking to let teeth unfold the hidden velvet layers, parted by a gentle kiss, a breath to open a doorway, a passion to sudden sigh, whispers of secrets twirling in your ears, said with my tongue, I looked for their eyes through the partial drizzle of windy, bloody breezes. Oh my goodness. And then in that delusion, I awoke, holding you.
That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Was it meant to be a sensual love poem?
Yes. When I write, the words come out, and almost like flowing in a stream. I don't, or I guess a better comparison would be, I open my sail and the wind comes, grabs me. So when I'm writing, I see where those words are taking me, and the images are there. So I'm there, seeing those images, feeling those emotions, and some of those emotions are past memories or maybe something that I saw recently or felt recently. And I combined all that to create that poem, or any poem, actually, any poem, but that particular brought out this sensuality, yes.
Awesome. I'm interested. So your process for writing, is it more awaiting, or is there an outline, like a rhyme or reason to it?
I think it's more of a tapping into something, because at times, like if I give a lecture or talk, or even at open mics, I've done this. I play this game where either at one place, for instance, at one open mic, I lined up, I think there were 5 or 6 poets, and we started with the word, and then from that word, the first poet had to create this phrase, which would be the first line of the poem. The next poet would have to then add a line, and so on and so on. But you continue that until we had this wonderful poem. On the side, we had someone that wrote the poem. So at the end, it was read, the entire poem. And I did that exercise because I think that a lot of us, sometimes we don't listen well to each other. And I think the first place to listen well is to listen inside yourself. And that's why I call it tapping, because that's kind of how I create or write my poetry, where it'll start with a word or a situation. And then those words, like that word association game, those words then come together. And like, if, that whole thing, I say the word apple, it's hard for you not to see an apple in your mind. So when certain words come to me, certain images, and then I then move those images and see where they go. So if I'm writing about something, as I'm looking at, it's literally like I'm looking at the poem, and then I have to write, I have to translate what I'm seeing. And of course, there's editing and all that too. It's not perfect. But that's many times how I write. Yeah, I tap into things.
Hello, Kimberly. Welcome.
Hey, Kimberly.
Hey, good people.
Yes.
I am so sorry. I was thinking all morning that I had already posted that link, and I hadn't.
No worries.
No worries. Now, what are we going to do regarding the people seeing us?
Oh, it's already going live streaming to YouTube.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, so we're fine.
It's been doing that the whole time there, Henry.
Okay, all right. Great.
So if they're at the YouTube channel, they've been watching all along.
Good.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. I just had to open up my computer so that if they ask any questions, I can see them. It's hard to do that from a phone.
Okay.
Oh man. So Kimberly, what have you been up to?
Well, good things, good things. I have been working with a group of girls through day 8. Right now, a writing circle for women and girls, and we have one more month session left in this month, and that'll be the end of that particular project. It was great to work with the girls and to explore and expand women and expand what they think writing is, what writing could be, and just to explore themselves as writers and to embrace that. Because a lot of times people don't like to call themselves something. You ever go up to someone and say, you're a poet? And they're like, well, I don't want to, they don't want the title. The title is not the problem. So don't worry about the title. The title is what you make it. So if you're a poet, just say you're a poet. But if you're serious about what you're doing, then claim it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's really good. I really like that. I have been wanting to do something just for like young ladies and ladies in my city to process and to write together, just to kind of bring them together. So we now have a youth poet laureate, and her and I are doing a library series. And so we'll be able to get out there and do that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's, you know, I look at other poet laureates, and sometimes, I think to myself, am I doing enough or am I doing too much? And I think you just have to learn to follow your heart and say, hey, I'm going to do what's in my heart to do in this position and make it do what it do while I'm in this position.
Yeah.
So how much longer do the both of you have as poet laureates?
Mine was started as the inaugural, and I had asked that. It was for, it's the American Academy of Poets. It was the biography, and they text back, and I said, they didn't say. So I texted the mayor, and he said, don't worry about it. Because I'm working. When I became the poet laureate, it was at the peak of the virus, the COVID. And I was happy after induction and everything. We went out to eat, and I woke up the next day and said, how am I going to interact with people? We're masked up and places are closing down. And in fact, where the induction occurred was at our library, and it had just opened, and there weren't a large crowd of people there, and they were standing so far behind, away from the camera and everything. And that was a challenge. And then the next year it was rough too. I'm just doing the best I can and just to continue it. So.
For me, it's October 2020 through October 2022. So I have a little bit left on my reign. And so mine will be over the 1st or October 9th, I think is the ceremony for the next poet laureate for Prince William County, Manassas and Manassas Park. And the challenges online were challenging. I found that it actually kind of worked kind of good at certain times, if that makes sense, because I was able to reach people who maybe, trying to go through, say, one school and go through every 6th and 7th grade class would have been trying to race through, the school and go to each one. But when I did it online, it was easier to, gather 6 or, 4 or 5 classes at one time, and then the next Zoom, another 4 or 5 classes. So even though it was, like Henry said, a challenge to do it online, it also helped group things together in a different perspective.
Yeah, I found that during the pandemic, I was able to do more online, and it allowed me to touch some people that I probably would have never been able to touch if I was in person, because a lot of times in person, the same people come out. where ever come to a poetry event, but they would come to an online event because they were just sitting at home and didn't have anything to do. And really got some people writing, especially young people. I got a lot of young people writing during the pandemic. So that was good. I love it. Awesome. So Kim, you are Poet Laureate of Prince William County, is that correct?
Correct. Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park, Virginia.
Okay, awesome. And Henry, you are in Hendersonville, Tennessee?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just absolutely, I've been able to be inspired by the both of you for the last about year and a half, and I appreciate you so much. I do have a few questions, but Kim, I'd like to hear a poem from you before I ask another question.
Absolutely. I'll do one of my favorites, and it's called Black Crayon.
Mm.
Let me get my paper separate. I hate when I'm reading it. I've got to fight with the paper. Everybody's like, is there a pause there? No, I can't get the paper separate. All right, this one is called Black Crayon. I wonder if the black crayon knows how it's pronounced in Spanish and treated in English. I wonder if the black crayon knows it was never meant to be colored with, only used. If it was discarded, it would be blamed for being unuseful. I wonder if the black crayon knows it is hated. I wonder if it knows it must stay in the corner of the box, segregated from the better colors, since it's too dark. Pigmentation challenge, treated like a leper, looked at for problems, but not solutions, roasted like charcoal and blamed for the fire. I wonder if the black crayon knows if it broke, it would be blamed for being broken while pretending to be whole. It will not scream. It will stand quietly still, hoping its color is not the cause of its own destruction. I wonder if the black crayon knows if it could not color anymore, it would still be called colored, or lack with a B in front of it, black. If it was chosen, it would be drawing something ugly, watching its color be secured to anger, begging for a chance to draw beauty. Black crayons, repent for your misconceptions. When one black crayon draws outside the line, every black crayon is answerable. Maybe they could try to look softer. Maybe their hardness is a protective coating. A black crayon can write in several languages and be ignored in all of them. Crayons grieve. I wonder how often black crayons cry. Can you hear their own tears drip, or is solitude louder than pain? Will we draw black tears and call them periods? Aren't sentences syllabalized weapons that end with a black dot? I wonder if black crayons ever compare war stories with black pens. I wonder if a crayon could draw his own agony with no paper willing to accept the weight of its thoughts. What are black crayons supposed to draw? Should they lightly sketch how lonely it is inside of a crowded box? This box is so small. Black crayons smell freedom each time the box is open. They are taught discipline. They know their place. They draw whole or in pieces. They draw life and defy death. They bleed inside that box. Even when selected, the black crayon knows is only temporary air. After all, boxes are not made to be empty.
Yes. Talk about that black crayon. Oh man, there's so much in there. I love it. I love the way you weave culture into something as simple as crayons. And
Henry, I know you do the same thing. You weave your Blackness and the Black experience into your poetry. How do you think that has helped your city as you've been poet laureate? How has, the expression of Blackness been a part of you being poet laureate, and how has it helped the city in being able to express it?
The people that I've met, the community, moving aside COVID where people aren't really interacting, but the community, there have been people that I've met who weren't Black and did not have a lot of interaction with Black people and Black culture other than what is portrayed on television, movies, and internet. And I'm kind of generalizing the different responses. Some were saying things like, I didn't know that was going on. And remember, we were, since being a poet laureate, we've had our Black Lives Matter movement, the beatings and all. And when I share that, because I'm not afraid to share me being Black, I'm Black, I like being Black, I don't mind being called Black. I think it's important to share experiences versus this generic narrative. When people say, well, aren't we all humans? Well, yes, we are all human, but we each have our own experiences. Even as a Black man, there's another Black man, and he may be a poet that lives and works in this city, but his experience aren't the same as mine. I'm from Detroit. You can find other poets from Detroit. So you can't just say, oh, well, that story, I've heard it. And then I've had people on the negative end, I'm not into the Black culture stuff. Some white people. What I enjoyed the most is when people actually sat, because they're at our library that first year, I had a table, and it was, I think it was a Wednesday, and people would come in and I would recite poetry, and then also recited poetry outside when it's warm. And people, that didn't go over so well, because if you imagine you're just out in the park and this guy comes up with a book and says, hey, would you like to hear a poem? And but in the library, when people came through and they heard and they understood why I was doing that, it was to reach people, the response was good. I don't know what the takeaway is in terms of afterwards, when they went home, of course, and maybe talk with others, but I just felt that was a moment to share who I am, what I've experienced, and the stories of my people, and to give them a different narrative than what they see on television, in the movies, and on the internet. And that's what I think, as a people, regardless of our race, ethnicity, and everything, we need to take the time to listen to each other versus say, oh, that's what this group of people is all about. We need to listen to the direct source, or numerous direct sources. And, and I don't believe that human thing, we're all human. Of course, we're all human. Because and there was a recent event, and the guy said, well, aren't you just a human? I said, yeah. But I said, but you never, because it was referring to the Black thing. It was a white guy. And I said, but you wouldn't ask a woman when she expressed the same thing to say, well, aren't you just a human? Why do you have to bring forth the woman? Because women have diverse experiences. No woman is the same. Black, and then Black woman. I mean, we can't be afraid to listen to each other. And as Black writers and Black artists, we were denied expression. So this is a moment where we're allowed to bring forth this. So when I'm sharing, I'm feeling that too, that there was a time we were killed for reading.
Yeah.
I'm able to write, I'm able to share, I'm able to bring these stories and hopefully encourage others to write. And that to me is revolutionary. It really is. So, yeah.
I love that. What about you, Kim? How has your expression, has it helped your city or maybe opened up conversations in your city?
The thing I love that people have told me, and which I thoroughly appreciated, was it's nice to see, the word representation matters. It's nice to see someone who looks like me. One person said in particular, it's nice to see someone, a dark-skinned sister, in that position. And not that it was, for those of you who don't come from me, I'm not saying we're not going to play the shade game. The reason why she brought that up is because there was a time when if you were of a darker hue, you weren't considered for certain positions. And so for certain people to see me in this position gave them the representation that they were looking for. Like, I can do that. I have a chance of being poet laureate. And since I'm the first African American one, it was a distinction that I have, that I use the distinction to show people that it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter where you come from. I was a horrible speller when I was a little kid. You don't know what you are going to become. If you had told me at that age that I'd be a poet writing and before, I would have laughed. I'm like, there's no way. There's not writing. I can't spell. What are you talking about performing and writing poetry? That's not me. That's not who I'm going to be. So you just don't know. Don't limit yourself. And as far as the issues with what's going on, as far as being a Black person in this position, I think it has opened up the position to represent my county in areas that were typically not necessarily not represented, but didn't have the poet laureate to be able to go to a Juneteenth program and perform, to go to a Black History program and perform. It's not that the other ones could not have done it, but it's different when the poet laureate is Black. So you get my experience and things I've gone through and things we as a community have gone through to be included in your program because I've lived it. We've lived it. We've seen it. And I think it opened up the county to have representation in different areas that they didn't have before because they were open to having that representation.
I feel that. I feel that. I find that when I go into places that are predominantly Black, they didn't even know there was a poet laureate in the city. And then they're so excited when they see that it's a person of color. And they're like, oh, wait, like you will listen to us and you can take some of our struggles, to the mayor or to the people that are making some decisions. And so it's been really nice to be able to see the eyes of our young people light up when they see, hey, there's a Black poet laureate. Oh my goodness, I can do that now. And just for them to see also just that they can write. I'm a math teacher and I'm a poet. And so just to let them know that there's no limitation to what they can be. And I think that's probably been one of the most powerful parts about being able to be a Black poet laureate.
Absolutely. And working with the students is always fantastic because when I do poems on Fortnite and haiku on Fortnite and Superman and Wonder Woman, and they're like, wait a minute, what? I'm like, poetry is what you decide poetry is. And this is across races and different areas. It's just letting them know that you are poetic if you choose to be. It's not it doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to be this. Now, when you get into structured poetry, it has to be what it has to be. A haiku has to be 17 syllables. But when you're not in the structured world of poetry, your poem is what you say it is, period.
Yeah. And that level of freedom for anybody is a blessing. So when we start to tell people, hey, you have this freedom to let your poem be what you want it to be on the page, then you then open something up and you give them the freedom to just be. And I know that's what poetry has always done for me. So being able to take that to the rest of my city has been pretty awesome. All right. I do have one more question. And this has just been a struggle of mine, and that is finding time to write for me while serving because I feel like I am always writing a commissioned poem or a poem that somebody asked me to write. How did and how do you two balance that, and still write for self and, stay in this space where you're writing these commissioned poems as well?
I write constantly. Today, I have not written a poem, but I write on a regular basis. And the number of commissioned poems haven't been. When I hear other poets saying, "Oh, I've been commissioned to write this, write that for this event," I say, "Well, I haven't written a lot of commissioned poems as I envision they have. So I guess that's not taxing for me, But
Okay.
but when I've been asked to write about a particular subject, I had research involved and the imagery, looking at images online and so forth, even talking to people, and that took a lot of time. But whether driving, I'll pull over the side of the road in the store, on the way to a meeting. If I see something or hear something on NPR or whatever I'm listening to, a poem comes out, and it may not be long, because some people, I write long poems, and when I tell people I write every day. It was one morning I wrote a poem. It was a 7 lines, So I think some people think that poetry is this long, extensive process. And then the other thing is that, and it's not, but the other thing is, even though for me, when I start the poem, I'll sit it down, come back to it. Or I want to pull out as much as I can. Later, I edit it. It may, usually transforms in some ways, because I look and say, that's not the right word. And that's not what I really see. So I'm still working on it. So it's this constant process of trying to allow that poem to evolve. But there's not a big struggle, because I have not had the opportunity to write a lot of commission pieces before, and things have been closed. So,
For me, I tend to, even though I'm supposed to be, like you said, you get that commissioned poem, and then that's what I'm supposed to be writing, and then I'm way over here on a totally different subject. I'm like, okay, that's not what we're writing about. So a lot of times I'll start on the commission poem, end up writing a poem for me, and then I'll go back to commission work. So, as I say, the pen goes where the pen goes. And what I don't do is, shut it down, because we all know, for those of you who say, do y'all remember? No, we don't. So those of us who have written learn the lesson of writing it down as soon as it comes in our head, or pulling over as soon as we hear it or think of it, because that, I'll remember it, is a lie. It's a lie.
that's good.
So yeah, that's how I balance it out. Just bounce back and forth. And if I haven't written something for me in a while, then I'll at least write a couple of short ones for me, and then I'll go back to it.
Yeah, I told my husband the other day, I said, I feel like I have written so many poems for other people lately, like finished poems, not just like little pieces. I've done, some poetry, CrossFit and things like that, which starts of poems, but getting to a completed piece, I don't think I have done enough of that. And so I'm looking I'm looking forward to being able to write some more for myself in the upcoming months. I have a lot of projects that are like on the shelf because I haven't been able to just devote the attention to them, and I want to get them done. So yeah.
Understandable.
Now, Kim, do you have any projects that you're working on? We talked about Henry's up and coming book, but do you have anything that you have up and coming?
Well, I host an open mic in my area in Prince William County and Lake Ridge at Clearbrook Performing Arts Center, and it's every third Monday at 6:30. So that's fairly recent. We started that John Wooten, and this was his baby. He invited me in and said, hey, why don't we do open mic here? We're always going to DC and Maryland. And, I was all for it because we're always going to DC and Maryland. So, so that's something that I have coming up. And there's a couple of local events. They call it Arts Alive here. That'll be September 11th. And a lot of other events on my schedule. I'm the calendar queen. So, that's the only way I make sure I don't double book, because I'm like, hold on, let me check first, because exactly. And I'll be filming at a charity event on September 17th, and that should be on my website as well.
Cool. All right. Oh, well, let's go back to some poetry. Henry, you have another piece you want to share with us?
Actually, yes. This piece, there's an area in Hendersonville called it's called Rock Castle Slave Cemetery. And annually, various groups meet to clean up the cemetery. The first time I was there, I received these, so I'm listening to the Baha'i, it was the Baha'i of, I believe, Sumner County, or Baha'i of Hendersonville. They were one of the groups. And then the various Baptists and other churches, and the Qs were there and so forth. Well, I was just feeling these impressions the first time I was there, meeting people, because it's just nothing but people talking and drinking, the different breakfasts and, having a good time. But I realized I'd never seen a cemetery where enslaved Africans were. And it was an eerie feeling. So after that first time, that evening, all these thoughts and those feelings were still in me. It's like those tingles. And this poem came from that. And then I sent it to the coordinators, and they were like, oh my gosh. So I wanted to read that. And then that poem morphed, because this was an annual event and I'd been going there for numerous years, helping. It's titled Quilt of Blood and Hope. Well, actually, this is the second one. I'm going to start with that. I'm going to read that one instead, yeah. Quilt of Blood and Hope. And this was inspired because one year, this is in 2020, the Qs brought out so many of their brothers to help. It was like a fraternity thing. And I know one of our friends, Greg, and I said, oh, you got a lot of your brothers here. He said, oh, yeah. They came from everywhere. But they were very helpful. And we were talking about quilts, and I kept hearing that. And so I'm listening to these words, and that's where this came from. The hidden and sacred place of enslaved Africans, these silent and numerous graves beneath our feet, where weary bones and sheltered dreams rest, laying amongst the field of trees and stones that remember with tight rings and chipped pieces, bodies of maimed flesh and soaked burlap, those fragments of dreary nights captured to create a nation of fear and lies, then forget. Then like a nightmare, awoken in a warm sweat, dry the skin with lashes to reach deeply until the screens become nothing but an open mouth. The echoed cries of hope and freedom, buried below the ground, smothered voices, protected by layers of twisted vinca vines, await the warmth of spring to emerge sprouts. New blooms points the trail of footprints when another loved one was where another loved one was placed. The earth's womb was swollen from all their labor. Rest, my dear, I'll hold you, she said. Hours of toil and beatings beyond pain, numb to thought or fear, just listen and do, and forget the rapes, beatings, and lynches to make to make and instill generations of fear in us. Now these periwinkles peeking along the echoed journey into the past, when we reach each day for solace, now we come to this emotional landslide to let some know and others remember how long the stars protected our ancestors, waiting for us to return and connect to them. Here, no longer a hidden bed of misery, but now a quilt made from the gathered pieces of ourselves, sewn and held together with threads of blood and hope to realize those lost generations were not in vain.
I love that. I love it. We have an African burial ground about 15 minutes away from my house. And it was my first time ever being to something like that as well.
That's
It
good.
is powerful to be amongst the ancestors.
Yes, yes. And, you know, we don't know what's on the other side because we haven't been. But I know that when loved ones have died, sometimes I feel their presence. My father was a cigar smoker, and he stopped during his life, but that particular aroma I'd smell. Just eerie things you really can't explain. And I think that our reality is more complex than we realize. There is no clear-cut understanding of things because what you experience may not translate as factual, and you tell things to people, they may not understand. They'll say, oh, that was some auditory hallucination or whatever. Did you have something to drink? Did you smoke something? Were you tired? Everyone's trying to figure. But I know that I've been visited by loved ones during difficult times. And we know we can feel each other's presence. And I think that, I know that love never dies. And just like we miss the loved ones, I'm sure wherever they are, they miss us as much. And I know, for instance, I can't say this for sure. When I die, and one day I will, wherever I go, I will try to find a way to reach out to the ones I love and communicate. And it's only after I die where I'll see what I must try to do and what's involved in that. And I think that our loved ones are constantly trying to do that. I think they can see us and they see when we are going through something and they try their best to reach us in this universe. So I know when visiting places like that, the Rock Castle, that there's a presence, there's a history, there's something spiritual and healing that exists. And we have a lot of places like that because there's been a lot of violence, our school shootings, all these horrendous things. There's going to be spiritual consequences in which we need to heal. Native Americans, I've only been to 2 ceremonies, but they speak of healing areas, and maybe we need to look into that, how we're going to heal ourselves in certain areas, because it exists.
Yeah. It does. Energy.
Yes, that energy, exactly.
So I think that they're definitely
Well, we can't. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Rhea.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, I heard definitely, and that was it. And you froze. Yeah.
All right, is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome.
Well, we could for a minute and then you trip right back out. But while you're getting your audio together, I just wanted to jump in and say thank you both for saying ancestors. It's I'm not going to say pet peeve, it's a concern of mine when we call where our ancestors are buried slaves. If they didn't want to be called slaves when they were here, why are we calling them slaves now? So for those of you who have been conditioned to say the word slave, can we take slave out and use the word ancestor? Because they were not just that. They had lives, they had decisions made for them, but you don't want to call your ancestor something that you wouldn't call them standing before you. So keep that in mind. Use words have power, words have meaning. They get passed down. So please change your language, change your thought pattern, change and realize what you've been told. Look for the logic in what you've been told. Think about it. Does what you told make sense? I have a poem that has one line, two lines in it, and I'll just say these two lines. Is it that we couldn't write or that we couldn't write English? Is it that we couldn't read or we couldn't read English? Everything that's phrased is phrased a certain way for a reason. Think about it. Think about the logic. If we were savages, would you let a savage breastfeed your child? Think the logic. Think the logic. Think the logic.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So it's those words to create a narrative still. And even that site, there's a sign as you approach and it says Rock Castle Slave Cemetery. And for years, I've known, no, we're not slaves. And I said, I need to talk to somebody about this sign and get it changed. It's part of the state and all that. But I'm like, I need to talk to somebody because in a lot of museums and even these plantations locally, slowly they have changed the wording. Some have gone to the ridiculous side and say servants. They weren't servants. They were enslaved Africans. And that is the correct historical wording. And it does not create, because it shows these were human beings that were enslaved. And that's by, as you said, Kimberly, that wording, it creates a mindset. And then it feeds into this generational lie in terms of how we interact with each other. Because if you believe, and you've you've come from slaves. No, we didn't come from slaves. No, we didn't come from slaves. And it's just so much. But yes, as writers and storytellers, because that's what we are really, we have to phrase things, as Kimberly said, correctly, because we're creating images in mind. So that is definitely something that needs to be done everywhere. And it's not expensive. They always throw the money game out there. That's the way it's been worded. It costs this, costs that, but it's got to be done.
Well, yeah. If land acknowledgements have to now be done, when, for universities and things like that, then we can require such things as well.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Well, Kimberly, I know, I hope everybody can hear me now.
Yes.
I think I was on the wrong side of my house for my Wi-Fi to continue working. I had to move. So, Kimberly, would you like to share one more piece with us?
Absolutely. So I'm going to do some haiku, and people are like, why did you say haiku singular? Because haiku is both singular and plural. And what is a haiku? So a haiku is a beautiful Japanese poem, obviously started in Japan. A traditional haiku, first of all, there's more than one type of haiku. I'm talking about the 575 haiku, which is 17 syllables, not words, syllables. Stop tagging me. If it's a word, it's syllables. Anyway, you can see I get a little salty. 17 syllables, and traditional haiku are only on nature. They also have a beautiful art form called a senryu, 17 syllables on human follies, and we've kind of made that any subject. So if you see one on flowers, you know it's nature, you know it's a haiku. If you see one on any subject, you know it's a senryu. Now that's the performing arts poet world. We don't make that distinction when we're performing it, just like, you know, both a palm and an oak or both a tree. We know if you hear it and it's on nature, you know it's a haiku. And if you hear it and it's not on nature, we know it's a senryu. Now we call them both a haiku. Again, like you call both a oak and a palm, both trees. So, and I normally give that intro. So why do you keep going through that intro? Just do the thing, blah, blah, blah. No, because when you are a poet, and you take someone's art form and alter it in any way, shape, or form, give credit to the originators.
Yes.
Give credit to the original. I'm big on that because people aren't big on doing that for us, so I'm big on doing that for others. So that's why I will always do that. So anyway, and I say haiku before each one, not as necessary, but just because I'm extra. Okay, haiku. And for those of you counting, these are based on memory, so there may be a syllable off. There's always somebody. It's written correctly, I promise. We are hashtags birthing more hashtags. Name your caskets, not your children. Haiku. You have calendar fillers, not soul fulfillers. Schedule time with truth.
Wow.
Haiku. Some of you are not invited because you're great and they're just good.
Yes, yes. I like that one.
Okay, because everybody's like, I wasn't invited because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, not necessarily. Sometimes you're not invited because you're great. Okay, I'm just saying what it is. Haiku. Suffering is not a competition. You can't gold medal your pain.
Yes.
And that's when someone starts to tell a story. And I normally don't explain it, but this one just gets me. Someone starts to tell a story, then someone tries to outstory their pain, and then someone starts to outstory, well, this is what happened to me. Everybody has something horrific that they've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, suffering is not a competition. You went through something. When someone's telling their story, they're not trying to belittle your pain. They're just telling their journey. And they just want you to walk with them for a couple of steps. So don't jump to your path so quick. Let them walk on their path a little bit.
That's good, Kim. You preaching now.
How can Blacks have mad hate outside the Oscars? We've never been in. Yeah, y'all know it. Anyway, haiku. If their joy triggers your jealousy, you're supplying your own bullets.
Wow.
Haiku. You're asking people to enforce your boundaries. Nah, build your own fence.
Preaching in like 17 syllables. I love it. It's like some pastor is gonna come along and find all your haikus and build a whole series of sermons.
Oh yeah.
Haikus.
Haiku coming.
Throw in some passages and yep.
Yeah, throw in some scripture. He could be like, I'm gonna call this series the Haiku series.
Exactly.
Thanks to Sister Kimberly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'll give y'all one for the pastors then. Haiku. Even Jesus was betrayed by one of his boys. So who's your Judas?
Ooh.
Oof.
And again, those are haikus, and I love them because they're interesting and different. And each one could be about totally different subjects. And obviously, unless you're writing one on nature, then you really need to follow the pattern. But if you're doing a scenario and look it up, because you say, well, how did you learn this? Because I looked it up. I wanted to learn about haiku. I learned that it was based on moras. That's the sound in the Japanese language. We didn't have anything equivalent to a mora, so we went with syllables. So that's why if you actually write one and enter a true haiku contest, they may say it's not right because our moras and syllables do not equal. But that was the closest thing we had.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. My husband writes haikus. He's an amazing haikuist.
Yeah.
He has a whole book, 101 haikus.
Wow.
And for him, it's his way of telling stories because he's a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And so he found a way to tell an entire story in 17 syllables. I'm always fascinated by people who write haikus so well. So yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Oh, thank you.
Those are wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's 7:05. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your day and making our first Sundays with Black Poet Laureates come back to life. It's been a few months since we've been able to hop on because of scheduling conflicts, and sometimes people back out, but hey, we made it this month, and hopefully we will continue to make it and just be able to highlight 2 poets every month. I mean, if we stick with only 2 poets, we might be able to get through everybody.
Right.
So for all of you that will watch or are watching, I definitely want to have you follow the Black Poet Laureates on YouTube and on Facebook, because in 2023 we will be releasing our very first anthology,
Yes.
Black Poet Laureates. And I got a chance to interview Cornelius Eady about a month and a half ago, and I was telling him how awesome it was to finally meet him because he had been in so many of my anthologies, and so I wanted to do this historic anthology. I think that it's going to be powerful for the future, for young people, because, I've been reading Cornelius Eady for so long, and then I had a chance to meet him, and we'll be able to do that for other young people. I don't know when the last time there's been an anthology of Black poets, and so here it comes.
That's right. That's right. Well,
There's
thank you, Leah. Yeah, thank you for the questions and the opportunity to share poetry from my upcoming book, Black Skillet Blues, Poetry Without Cornbread. So we need to get it out.
I love that title.
Yes.
And if you're looking for haiku and some poems and chemisms, my latest one is called My Poetry is the Beauty You Overlook.
Yes, go and get the books and find Kim B. Miller and Henry L. Jones on social media. Follow them and be inspired by them continuously, just like I am. See you guys next month.
Thank you.